Hi, I'm Jennifer.
I'm Mike,
And I'm Andrea.
and
we're
we're
not
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 saints.
saints.
But we're learning
Eh.
from them and we're enjoying the journey. And I just have to say, I can't believe that this is the end, our last session, our last episode of session 2. And what I'm finding, and Mike kind of gets tired of it because every morning I'm like, oh my gosh, did you read about this about that saint or this about this saint? I feel like the saints are becoming so real to me. There's such a really powerful part of my life that weren't when we started this podcast
Yeah, that's
a while
for
ago.
sure.
I just, they're no longer figures that we see in the stained glass window at church. They're real and they're becoming real. And today I am so excited because we're going to talk about Saint Jude. And I found Saint Jude fascinating. I didn't know as much as I know now. But what I love about him is that as one of the apostles, he was really the quiet one. In the whole Bible, he has one line. And his line is, Lord, how is it that you will reveal, he does it at the Last Supper, first of all. Lord, how is it that you will reveal yourself to us and not to the world? John 14:22. And I love it. He's just mainly like asking, why? What's going on? I don't know if you guys, any of you felt that, but it's just one question. And yet it was a pretty powerful question that he asked. And then you go later in the gospel and his letter, the Epistle of Jude, is like one page. I mean, it's amazing to me and one that I love because it's very powerful. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. But I love taking this out. Build yourselves up in your most holy faith. Pray in the Holy Spirit. Keep yourselves in the love of God. Jude 1:20-21. And that keep yourself in the love of God is like my new mantra. I love it. It kind of got me like I'm getting high on words, on those words, I must say. After his life, after his martyrdom, Jude became the most popular male apostle. No,
Saint.
Thank you. And second to our beautiful Mother Mary, which again, I found that fascinating. And so early on, I'm going to backtrack for a little. I hope I'm not going on and on. But Danny Thomas, a little bit older than my generation, but his daughter Marla Thomas, that girl, my generation, loved her. And always used to watch those commercials for St. Jude Hospital. And that's kind of all I knew about St. Jude was there was a hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And so I loved researching what happened with Danny Thomas and why did he choose St. Jude? And actually the story I found and I shared with all of you was Marla Thomas explained when her dad was only making like $12 a week. And when she was born, she was in the hospital and he needed $50 to get her out. And he only had 10 to his name. So we went to church and it happened to be the day that they were studying St. Jude. So Danny Thomas is in there. He has $10 in his pocket. He needs 50. And so he takes 7 of the 10, puts it in the envelope and writes, Jude, just please give me a sign. Am I on the right journey? Am I doing the right thing? And it was obviously the Sunday Mass. And on Monday morning, he received a phone call from his manager that there was a singing toothbrush commercial that they wanted him to be the voiceover, and it paid $75. And after that, Marla Thomas talks about how it was sign after sign after sign, and therefore he decided to build the hospital for impossible causes for children. I mean, and that's another story in itself. But I love the story again about how saints are not God. We ask them to help us talk to God, intercede for us. And we want to learn from them too, because what they went through in their lifetimes are just amazing. So I'm sorry I went on a little bit longer today than normal, but I really did find him so fascinating.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Yeah.
He wasn't always the most popular or among the most popular saints. And
No, that's correct.
I love all of those points. I feel like we are going to touch on those a little bit throughout telling about his history and why he matters so much today. But there was a lot of confusion when it came to Jude because of the mix-up between Judas Iscariot and Saint Jude. And it's funny because one represents betrayal and Saint Jude was actually one of the most loyal and most faithful followers of Jesus. And he's another one of the saints of impossible causes. So we just finished studying Saint Rita last week, and he is kind of right in line with that.
Yeah.
He was one of the 12 apostles, and You had mentioned how he was born in Galilee, same region that Jesus grew up in ancient Palestine. And St. Matthew describes Jude as Jesus's brethren in Matthew 13:55. And in Hebrew, brethren, as I'm reading through all this, it indicates a blood relation. So when you're talking about the family tree of St. Jude, you have Jude's mother, Mary Clopas, and Mother Mary, Jesus's mother. Those two ladies were cousins. And I know we got a lot of Marys.
I know, lots of Marys for
We've
sure.
got Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, who we've talked about this season, and now Mary Clopas. Clopas enters the chat as Jude's mother.
Yeah.
And then Jude's father, Cleophas, and Jesus's father, Joseph, those two were brothers.
I know. So cousins married brothers.
Well, I think you got to remember in those days, people didn't have cars, obviously, so they weren't traveling around a lot. So they tend to marry people in the same village.
Yeah, that's true.
It's the same.
True.
That's the way it was. But the one thing I found very interesting about studying this saint, they didn't, and nobody had last names. It was that's why I kept thinking, well, Judas Thaddeus was...
Jude Thaddeus. That's how we kind of... Yeah.
But Thaddeus was not his last name. That's a nickname. It's like a second name.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thaddeus was a very common nickname at that time.
Mm-hmm.
That is
like what did he say? What he says, like Bubba.
Yes,
like being called Bubba.
Okay.
But anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's okay. That was necessary. We need to know what nicknames were in those days. But no, the last thing I was going to say about the family tree was Jude's brother, Saint James, was another original apostle. So he was also then cousins or second cousins with Jesus, depending on how you look at it, because Joseph was his stepfather, Jesus' stepfather. So I guess we can't claim the blood relation there, but you can certainly do that when it comes to the two mothers who were cousins.
And remember, too, James was James the Less, because what amazed me is his name, James the Less, but he was the one as that was more outgoing, was more talking, and that Jude Thaddeus was much more quiet.
Yeah. And I think we see how quiet too, that how Jude is in the Bible. I mean, he only appears a couple of times, and you had mentioned in John 14:22 at the Last Supper, when he's asking Jesus, hey, you're revealing yourself to us. Why not just reveal yourself to the world the way you have to us? A powerful question met with a powerful response. Whoever loves me will keep my word, dwell with God, and he reveals himself to those who love him. So Jesus doesn't force the relationship with us. It's an opening of the door. Hey, you're welcome to come inside, and we're going to have a relationship, but it takes two to create that relationship.
That's what our Mass is all about on Sunday.
Yeah. And we're getting closer to Pentecost, and that's another time that Jude was in the scenes of Jesus's life that really stick with us. I mean, he witnessed a lot of miracles. So Jesus truly did reveal himself to his apostles. Jude was able to see some of these things happen firsthand. And that's not what gave him this, a path of following Jesus and this faith in Jesus. He had faith in Jesus. So Jesus then let him see who he was.
Exactly.
And I think that's something we need to remember. In Mark 5:8, blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see God. We're told this at several times throughout the Bible, to have faith, to not be afraid, to place your faith in Jesus. Following Jesus is also being obedient and following what rules are in play and the commandments as well. Nonetheless, Jude was called to be one of the 12 apostles. He preached in Galilee, Judea, and more. He went to Mesopotamia, which is modern day Iraq. And through all of this, he's becoming the saint of impossible causes. But I did have one of the major stories out there on Saint Jude and Jesus. And when it comes to King Abgar of Edessa, which is modern day Turkey, we learn about Jesus. He's spreading the gospel. I mean, he's traveling a lot. He's super busy at this time. But King Abgar was dying of leprosy, and he wanted Jesus to cure him. Do you guys want to jump in as I tell the story?
Yes.
Yeah.
You're going to jump in?
Keep going.
Okay. So he wanted Jesus to cure him, and a messenger had come from King Abgar, and Jesus is spreading the word, and he tells Jesus that the king is dying of leprosy, and Jesus writes to him. Now, this is the part where it's the controversial letter that no longer exists, but once did exist, and there have been some who have written about this. So you can do your research and you can find that out there. Jesus writes to the king and says that the king will not die of leprosy, and he'll send someone to go and cure him. That someone that he's referring
Because
to,
Jesus has to fulfill his mission. Sorry, didn't
right?
mean.
He couldn't come, not only because he was super busy, but
Right.
also he needed to fulfill his mission, which was to die on the cross for us.
Exactly.
So Jesus sends one of his apostles to cure the king, but not yet. Sorry. This is in the letter that he allegedly wrote to
Yeah, he
the
wrote a letter back to the king. Yeah.
Yes. So in response to that, the king then sent an artist to draw a picture of Jesus so that he could be close to Jesus. And Jesus saw the artist. He was really moved by this gesture from the king, and he pressed his face to the cloth that then transferred his image onto the cloth.
Mm-hmm.
So he then gives that cloth to the messenger. In some cases, it says that he gives it to Saint Jude to bring to Abgar, but the story goes that he's not cured until after Jesus had already died. So then that would make it kind of hard for Jude to then take it to the king while Jesus is about to be crucified. But he put the cloth over him, and then after Jesus' crucifixion, Jude came to the king and was able to cure him.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys have more on it?
But I love that when Judas showed up, that light was coming from his hands. I thought that was a beautiful description.
Mm-hmm.
When he was healing Abgar. Yeah.
Yeah.
And right away he flipped to Christianity.
Yeah.
And
well, that's what they said. If you were on your deathbed and somebody came in with light emanating from their hands and put his hand on you, and you got up and you were ready to go.
Yep.
Everything's cured.
Ready to go.
I think you'd have a hard time not
being-
believing in that person's God instead of your own. I'd
Yeah.
say, oh, my God didn't help me. This Christian God, he's got to be something special.
Well, and
I'm taking it.
King Abgar clearly believed, because he was desperate to have Jesus come and see him, and he sends the artist there just to draw a picture of him so he
Right.
can be closer to him. So the faith was there.
Yes.
That, I think, is a really important part of it. Before the miracle happened, King Abgar did have faith in Jesus, and he converts due to all
Right.
this happening. Think about what your convert moment is, or if you were raised in the faith, that's one story too. But I think in all of us, there's a convert moment. Even if you're raised in the faith, you might be taught to know this and learn that and believe this and have faith in that, but you don't actually ever get there until your very own convert moment.
Yeah.
And I wonder, I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but maybe something to think about. What was your convert moment? You don't have to answer, but it's something to think about and
Yeah.
reflect upon, I think. Was it when the miracle happened, or was it before?
Good question.
Well, that's a whole nother subject too. We all have questions through our life, and our faith is tested,
Every
a
day.
lot because of our free will, and there's so many things happen.
Yeah.
That's, it's easy to have doubt, and that's the devil. I mean, the devil's always trying to get you to doubt it. That's all the devil needs to do. You don't
Yeah.
have to believe in the devil. You just have to doubt Jesus Christ, is all the devil's job is.
Yeah.
So, and we're always getting tested. Anyway.
Right. Like when you start to have random conflicts with your friends or your family, and you don't know where this anger and frustration or resentment is coming
Yeah.
from.
Right.
Father Stephen always says, oh, it's just the devil. Or if you
Yeah.
have technology glitches at a time where, when we're doing this podcast
Yes.
over this season, we've been reliant upon technology, and sometimes we struggle to get everything set up and going. But, if
Mhm.
you're really believing in God.
Sometimes one of us is late a lot too, but
Well, I don't know who that would be.
I don't know either.
But
Somebody
never change.
somebody I'm not sitting next to. Who is that?
so
No.
When it comes to the story of King Abgar, it's a great convert story. It's a great have
Mm.
faith story. And a lot of times Saint Jude is depicted holding the image of Jesus in his hands, or it's on a medallion on his chest. And that is a nod to the King Abgar of Edessa story. So I really don't think there's doubt that this happened in a version of what we're saying happened and the miracle that took place there.
Yeah.
Definitely secured St. Jude's sainthood. But before, moving from that topic of conversions, in St. Jude's letter, he pens this letter in 60 AD, and it was really a letter to recent converts, which you had brought up in the introduction. But he pens this letter, and it really comes off as a letter to the recent converts who, at the time, they're being persecuted.
Yes, they are.
And
Yeah.
it's still not great to be a believer at this time in the faith and in the Christian faith specifically. But he wanted to warn converts and other believers and others who had faith in Jesus that there would be false teachers and there would be lies about your faith.
Mhm.
And he just encouraged them to persevere and believe and to have faith. And even in the face of harsh circumstances they were in, that you should
Right.
never give this up. You should never give up this faith that you have. And it
Keep
leads
yourselves
him
in the love of God. I just love that.
and, stay faithful, remain in God's love, persevere. These are all themes of the letter. I know it's only a page long or less.
But it was a
depending on what-
powerful page.
Yeah.
Simple, done.
Yeah, he
In
didn't
those
waste
times,
a lot of words.
and in those times when you're facing an impossible cause of your own, it's a great letter to read, honestly. But no, I mean, this is also what leads him to being the saint of impossible causes. Just through that letter, you hear that and you feel that.
Exactly. As I said, I'm going back to the bigger, because all week I kept saying to Mike, I mean, don't you feel like we're just friends with these saints? Don't you just feel, and you want to know more, you just want to know so much more.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of even more, the depictions of Saint Jude too are nods to his story. I already mentioned about the medallion, or if you see the image of Jesus in his hand. But Saint Jude was martyred in Persia or Syria in 65 AD. He's often shown with an axe or a club, and that is the indication of the way he was killed.
Brutally
Yeah.
clubbed to death. And then,
Yeah.
was he? No, he was decapitated, but he was with Simon, and they cut Simon in half.
Ugh, I don't love that.
No, me either. And I don't want to see it either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So his body was brought back to Rome, and it was placed in a crypt under the St. Peter's Basilica.
Before that, they were buried where they were martyred, because at that time, people were very superstitious about spirits and ghosts. So it was custom, if you were murdered or killed, you needed to be buried where it happened. So they were both buried there, and the Christian faith built a church over them. And they stayed there, I think it was like 300 years.
Mhm.
This church stood over them, and then they took their bones out because they were under the altar and moved them to St. Peter's.
Mhm.
That's how they know for certain that it's St. Jude's bones, because they were buried where
he
he
was killed.
died, and they had a big stone church over the top, so they know they weren't moved. And then when they took him out to move him to St. Peter's, that's when they took his hand and his forearm, and they put it in a glass box, and it's still in existence today. They travel around with it.
Well, and I'm surprised that they even allowed them to build the church over them to protect their bodies, and that must have been a
Well,
fight as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what the story I was reading, because they were so superstitious
Mm-hmm.
and they had been beaten and their head cut off. They were afraid they'd come back as some angry ghost. So it was very specific. They had to be buried, and nobody even thought about disturbing it. I mean, you're
Yeah.
not going to go near it.
Exactly.
So they built a church over the top so they
Mhm.
can't be disturbed.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
The other thing too about St. Jude, when he's depicted in photos, there's often the flame around his head, and that
Mhm.
represents his presence at Pentecost. But I mean, he was present for other events as well, right? Like the feeding of the many.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
when he was present at Pentecost, he received the Holy Spirit. So there's often the flame around his head for that. And he's in a green robe. Very often you'll see him in a green robe. And that is indicative of hope and renewal. So like the symbolism of Saint Jude will hopefully help you remember his story, but it's a shame the devotion to him really began in the 1800s, and that was in Italy, and then it spread to Spain, and then to South America, and then finally the US caught up in the 1900s, 1920s Chicago.
Yeah.
Well, and he was popular till around 700 AD, I thought. It was like from 700 to 1500 that they got the
1700, I think.
Jude confused
With
with
the other Jude, Judas.
Judas. Thank you.
Judas and Jude.
Yes. And that's why now a lot of people refer to Jude as Jude Thaddeus.
So that they don't get it mixed up. And then same thing with the Marys, Mary Magdalene, Mary of Bethany, you've got Mother Mary, and now we've got Mary Clopas, sorry.
The mother of Jude.
Yeah, Father James Tort, he introduced the weekly novenas, and he introduced people to Jude. And again, that was in the 1920s in Chicago. And you were telling the story of the comedian who ends up becoming super faithful, obviously, to St. Jude. I mean, he's asking for his help.
And he kept getting messages in because of that one question he asked, just show me signs. Am I on the right path? And he had numerous signs.
Yeah. And what was his name again?
Danny Thomas.
Danny Thomas.
It's a black and white TV show, and I think it's called The Danny Thomas Show.
When was that?
You used to be able to watch it on Nick at Night, but I don't think Nick at Night's around anymore. But that girl you can watch on Prime Video.
Oh.
It's kind of fun. She's cute. I like those little shows.
But Danny Thomas, I mean, even St. Jude was spreading love and this hopefulness even in those mid-1950s, 1950s, and founded a hospital that never sends the bill to the family. You can get your child taken care of. There's no bill. And that's what's really wonderful about their mission.
And they put the families up, too.
Yeah.
Again, not an ad for St. Jude Hospital, but it's pretty.
Still.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's interesting to know the story behind it and the stories of the saints. This is why we do it, because we want to know how do they relate to today. And I think that is honestly the most in-your-face relation to today.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, everybody struggles. Everybody's faced with impossible causes at least once in your life. But I think he's a really great saint to learn his story and all that he does.
And you know what, as I said, I love what we're doing here, even if it's just the three of us entertaining ourselves.
Yes.
I just feel like we're learning about the saints, we're living with the saints, we're walking with them. And then whatever we're learning, we're sharing with you. As I said, it's so nice to know that there are novenas out there with saints and just prayers, and to ask these saints just for their intercession, because it's such a powerful gift.
Yeah.
That we have from them. And what a wonderful thing to learn from. As again, I cannot believe that we are closing season 2, and we'll be back most likely after Mother's Day. And who knows, we might try something special, like talk about a bunch of Marys. You never know. But I just want us in our signing off, unless you guys want to say anything else. No. I just think we all need to remember to keep ourselves in the love of God. If we didn't learn anything today, you know me, I always go into Heart's Way, always going to the love. But this one, keep yourself in the love of God. We all could do that. Even when we feel that moment where we react to something or something triggers us. No. Let's keep yourself in the love of God. Mike's going to probably kick me out because I'm going to be saying it all the time now. But that was so powerful to me, just about life is difficult. There are triggers out there, and we just need to stay where we can as best we can, because you know what? We're not saints.
We're not saints.
That's right.
We're trying.
That's right. So thanks again we really appreciated the emails we've been getting and texts and even comments on our
feed.
Our feed. Thank you.
The different feeds that we have.
And we really would love to know what saints you'd like us to talk about. We just would really love more input, and we've really appreciated the questions. So thank you guys, and everyone have a great day.
Thank you.
See
See
you-
you next
See you-
season.
see you next
See you
time.
next season. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of We're Not Saints. For more of the We're Not Saints shenanigans and behind-the-scenes content, you can follow us on Instagram at We're Not Saints 1. That's We're Not Saints 1, without the apostrophe. And be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. We'd also love to hear from you. So leave us a comment or a review, or contact us by email at we'renotsaints1@gmail.com.
And if you'd like to have a great companion to your weekly saint studies with us, you can purchase a copy of my books. Are You There, Mary? How to Resurrect in Love After Loss, or Finding Love in the Confessional on Amazon, available as a Kindle version or paperback.
All these links will be provided in the description of this episode. And don't forget to tune in next Wednesday for our weekly dose of saints. God bless you.
Should you read it again with more intonation?
No.
It was very Mike.